Do you want your antagonist to be a bad guy or a villain? It depends if you want your movie to be meh or if you want your story to be legendary. In my mind, the difference between the two is that a bad guy is pretty basic. He's evil because he's evil. He's mean because he's mean. He does bad things because he's a bad guy. But a villain has a backstory. A villain has a motivation. A villain is the hero of their own story. When you look at top villains on the web, and they do the countdown lists like every one of these movie sites likes to do, usually the top villain is someone like Darth Vader. Darth Vader is a great villain, and it's part of why the Star Wars movie went on to be the Star Wars franchise and the monolith that it is now. Darth Vader is a great villain because Darth Vader has a backstory that was expounded upon in later movies. A bad guy is just bad. We just say, oh, he does these things because he's bad. Well, a bad guy doesn't make your story better. A bad guy makes your story boring. He shows up in scenes and he does bad things and we're not sure why, and that's pretty boring. A villain like Darth Vader shows up and does things in a scene because he's motivated. He has a reason for doing the things that he does. We may disagree with all of those things, but we know the reason behind all of those things. Another example of a villain that's a lot different from Darth Vader would be Edward Rooney, Principal Edward Rooney in what is the name of the movie? I was about to say Saving Private Ryan. Principal Edward Rooney is not in Saving Private Ryan. I'm thinking Save Ferris. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Principal Edward Rooney. He's the villain of the film. His motivation is that he's tired of Ferris Bueller making him look like a fool in front of the entire school. The school loves Ferris, and so they don't love Principal Edward Rooney. And Principal Rooney wants to fix that. So that's his reason for going crazy and going after Ferris at all costs. That makes for a far more interesting movie. It makes for much bigger laughs in the case of a comedy because we get to see Principal Edward Rooney make a fool out of himself trying to go after Ferris Bueller. Now, my movie, currently with the working title of Blackout, it has a pretty boring, a very boring bad guy. He only has a few scenes where he dominates the scene, and for him to be someone that John, our hero, is really concerned about going up against, then the villain, which is Governor Wolf needs to be this intimidating force of nature. He needs to be someone that John is fearing going up against. In the beginning of the film, John lives on the fringes of this territory, and Governor Wolf has this iron fist of a rule over the territory. Well, he needs to have more than just a bad iron fist rule over the territory. He needs to have a control over the territory like many politicians do, where he's slick on the outside. He might have a little dirty corruption on the inside, but he's got a reason for doing what he's doing. He believes he's helping the people and all of that stuff. I'm not pointing any fingers at any politicians these days. I'm just saying, let's take a politician in general and pick out some of the eccentricities of them that seem common, but also put some eccentricities in our character too, Governor Wolf, to make him unique, but also identifiable. I want to make Governor Wolf a character that we understand. We understand why he's doing what he's doing. I want to make him a great villain. And that way, when John goes toe-to-toe with Governor Wolf, John, the odds are stacked against him. And that's a character we can root for, because many times the odds are stacked against us. The odds are stacked against me for making a film. They're incredibly stacked against me for making a film that people will actually watch. I feel that. So I understand John's dilemma of how do I get past Governor Wolf? That's the kind of villain I need to create, where it's insurmountable odds, where it's a villain that you wonder, how in the world am I going to beat this guy or girl, depending on who your villain is, or woman, I should say. So we have Governor Wolf in this case, this guy that's going to be just manipulative. For him, the ends justify the means. He's that type of guy, but I've got to write that into the story. He can't just be a bad guy. He needs to be a villain. And with that, I can create a story worth watching. So that's what I'm working on today. I'm working on taking Governor Wolf from bad guy to villain, so I can take my story from meh to legendary.